Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. The Honorable Mom Nadiah Ma'mun, as our beloved teacher in this course, respectable to all of you, to my beloved friends, before beginning to the presentation, let me to introduce myself. I'm Dinda, as moderator and presenter in this presentation. We are from 9 group. And in this presentation, we will discuss about teaching English vocabulary for EFL students through TBLT or Test-Based Language Teaching. There are 4 presenters who will explain each material in this presentation. For the first presenter is Androvi Jonathan, who will explain about introduction of TBLT. Next, for the second presenter is me, or myself, will explain about types of tests in TBLT. Then, for the third presenter is Alimatul Mubarakah, will explain about practice of this method. And the last presenter is Averus Fikriya, will explain about advantages and disadvantages of this method. Okay, let's restart. For the first presenter is Androvi Jonathan. Time is yours.
Thanks for the introduction, Dinda. Hello everyone, my name is Androvi Jonathan from the 9th group. As Mrs. Nadia was assigned before, the topic for our group is teaching English vocabulary for EFL students through task-based language teaching or TLBT. And firstly, before we get into the topic, I want to make sure that you have already know what the task-based language teaching is. So let's begin with what is the task-based language teaching. The task-based language teaching, or TLBT, is a type of instruction that relies on the use of authentic target language to do meaningful tasks. TLBT is also referred to task-based instruction, or TBI, and can be considered as a branch of communicative language teaching, or CLT. The assessment of learning is not only on the accurate use of the target language, but also based on the task outcome. The notion of the task is central to TLBT. This can be proved in the book Approaches and Methods in Language Teaching by Richards and Rogers in 2001, published by Cambridge University. In this book, I find 2 theoretical foundations to prove why the notion of the task is central to TLBT. The first is the theory of language. Language is primarily a means of making meaning. Multiple models of language inform the task-based instruction. Lexical units are central in language use and language learning. Conversation is central focus on language and the keystone of language acquisition. The second is theory of learning. Tasks provide both the input and output processing necessary for the language acquisition. Task activity and achievement are motivational. Learning difficulty can be negotiated and fine-tuned for a particular pedagogical purpose. After we know the theoretical foundation of TLBT, here I show you the key principle of it. Students' needs are central to determining the content of the curriculum. Communicative tasks are the key unit for language teaching and learning. Learners learn language by using it. Making meaning should be primarily focus of instruction. Focus on form is secondary to meaning and should be provided as needed. Tasks resemble of the type of activities learners need to do in their lives outside the classroom. Okay, after we know the key principle of TLBT, we must be wondering, what is the task? According to Prabhu, in his book Second Language Pedagogy, an activity which required learners to arrive an outcome from given information through some process of thought and which allowed teacher to control and regulate that process was regarded as a task. There are so many examples of tasks, such as solving a problem, ordering food in a restaurant, and many more. But before we make tasks, there are some criteria for tasks in TLBT. The first is meaning. This means tasks require learners to produce and understand communicative messages. The second is gaps. Tasks should involve gaps. There are three types of gaps: information gap, opinion gap, and reasoning gap. All of these gaps work together to make a good task. The third is the use of learners' own resources. That is, they have to use whatever knowledge of the language they have in order to participate in the task. And the last is the communicative outcome. Tasks must involve some sort of non-linguistic outcome. For example, drawing a road on a map or agreeing on a plan to solve problem of pollution in the learner's neighborhood. Now you are ready to make a task. If you still have problems to make tasks, don't worry, because now I will show you the typical procedure to make a task. The first stage is pre-task. At this stage, the topic is introduced through activities such as brainstorming, visual aids, games, and so on. The next stage is task activity. In this stage, the teacher gives clear instruction about the task. The learners do the task in pairs or in groups using their own linguistic and non-linguistic resources, while the teacher's role at this stage is to monitor, support, and encourage the learners. The last stage is post-task. This stage provides opportunity for learners to compare their product with a similar product by native or fluent speaker. Okay, I think this is enough for me. The next presenter will explain you the
Okay, now we will discuss about types of tests. According to the Oxford Handout source, there are 7 types of tests. First is information gap test. This activity includes exchanging peers information. For example, a teacher gives a family tree and the students have to complete the family tree. Next, opinion gap test. This activity related to students' expression, or this activity requires that students express their personal preference, feelings, or attitude in order to complete the test. For example, a teacher gives a social problem to the students. Then the students have to discuss and give a series of possible solutions for for the social problem. Then reasoning gap test. This activity concerns with testing students' understanding of information that has been given. For example, solving a riddle or guessing a cue. Next, unfocused test. The test designed to provide learners with opportunities for communicating generally. For example, making a trip planning. Then, focus tests. The test designed to provide opportunities for communicating using some specific linguistic item. For example, grammar structure or expression phrases. Next, input providing tasks. This task or this activity can be listening and reading skills testing, or this activity engage the students or participants to with the receptive skills of listening and reading. For example, fill the blank song. And last, output providing tasks. This task or this activity can be writing and speaking meaningfully skills testing, or this activity stimulates the students to write and speak meaningfully. For example, whisper challenge. And according to another source from channel by Giancarlo Sanchez Anilo, there are 5 types of tests. First is listing and brainstorming. For example, a teacher gives a topic to the students, and the students have to list what are includes from the topic. Next, ordering and sorting. This task can be sequencing, classifying, or ranking. And one example of this task is sequencing random pictures. Next, matching. In this task, you can match caption, text, or recorded extract to pictures. And next, comparing and contrasting. This task requires that students try to identify or find similarities and differences between two pictures which looks alike. And the last, problem and solving. In this activity, the students have to find or have to give a solution from a problem. Okay, for the next material, we'll explain with my friend. For Alimatul Mubarakah, time is yours.
Hi everyone, I'm Alimatul Mubarakah and now I would like to continue the presentation. Now I will explain about practice of TBLT. A typical test-based language teaching lesson developed in 3 main stages. There are pre-test, test cycle, and post-test. The first is pre-test. Pre-test is introduction to the topic and test, and teacher explores the topic with the class, highlight useful words and phrases. Help students understand test interaction and prepare. The pre-test stage works as preparatory stage for the topic and it includes 5 principal steps. First is schema building. Schema building exercise which serves as a means to brainstorm learner chimera by introducing to the topic, sit in its context identifying and explaining vocabulary items. This could be done through a listening or reading exercise followed by discussion. And the second step is control practice. The control practice exercise with learner listen to a conversation model and practice it in pairs or in group. And the third step is include a listening comprehension exercise. We learn as listen to a conversation and answer one or several comprehension questions. And the fourth is grammar focus exercise. Grammar focus exercise where learners study grammar structure needed for the game for the accomplishment of the task. And the final step of the pretest stage is a free practice exercise which allow learner to use the language from to produce a linguistic outcome such as a role play or conversation. Next is task cycle. Test is student doing the test in pairs or small group and teacher monitoring. Planning. Student prepare to the report to whole class in orally or in writing how they did the task and why they decide or discovered. And then report. Some group present their report to the class or exchange written report and compare result. And the test cycle have 5 steps. First is pair work and small group work versus the whole class. And then introduce a surprise element. And then set a time for completing the task. And then vary the number of participants. And the final is tell students they will have to present a report to whole class. Next is post-test. In the post-test have 2 stages. First is analysis. Analysis is student examine and discuss specific feature of the text of transcript of the recording. And then practice. Teacher conduct practice on new word, phrases, and pattern occurring in the data, either during or after the analysis. And post-test have 5 steps. First is student give a report, and then repeat the task, and then consciousness raising activities, and then student listen to a recording or watch a clip of fluent speaker doing the same test and compare the test with theirs. And the last is teacher give feedback and evaluates the success of the test. Okay, that's all my material, and the next material will be presented by my partner. The time is yours.
So, I want to explain about advantage and disadvantage of TLBT in teaching vocabulary for EFL. So, the advantage is implicit learning. The point of TLBT is to assist students with creating understood information on the language that will empower them to protect effectively and normally in correspondence. And one of the advantage is the student can get structure and utilization of the objective language without being unequivocally instructed. And the part of the education is to configure achievement by duplicating and making the condition for language learning and for correspondence that exists outside the bound of classroom. The point is, the student interlanguage will pick the favorable language information while doing errands. The second thing is incidental learning, and the last is meaningful learnings. And the meaningful learning, it means TLBT permits significant correspondence to happen during the achievement of a segment. Now I want to explain about disadvantage of TLBT in teaching vocabulary for EFL. The first is TLBT requires a high level of creativity, initiative on the part of the teacher. The second, TLBT requires resources beyond the textbook and related the material usually found in the language classroom. The third, evaluation of text-based instruction can be so difficult. So guys, this is the last explanation. Thank you very much for your nice attention. Thanks for watching and bye-bye.